Am I in focus? I really hope I'm in focus. So, I want to talk about a topic that not a lot of people really want to truly full-on address just as is. And that topic I want to talk about is isolation and chronic illness. Now, people without chronic illness are perfectly capable of isolating themselves because of stress or because of depression or because of whatever it is. But we seem to be able to do it even better than the average Joe sometimes, because we have so many things that seem to feed into the need to either isolate ourselves or for other people to isolate us, because they either don't understand us or we feel like we don't want to somehow contaminate them with all of our problems or whatever it is. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I've got my little list so that I don't forget. The easiest way that we isolate ourselves on purpose is when people ask, "How are you feeling? How are you?" We say, "I'm fine." We'll say, "I'm fine," even if we're on the phone and we're texting you, "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," even as we're crying. If you ask why do you say you're fine when you're not? It's such a simple question, but the answer can be so complicated, depending on who you ask. I say it for a lot of reasons. I say I'm fine because I don't want to explain how I feel. I don't want to go into depth about how much discomfort or pain or nausea or whatever it is. I don't want to explain all the reasons I don't feel good. Because sometimes it can depress me, it can depress you, it can depress the guy across the street. It's just not a topic that's happy. We feel like explaining all of the reasons why we don't feel good can sound really negative because it's kind of a negative topic. It's not happy. And so we don't want to be a Debbie Downer, really. We don't want someone to be like, "Yeah, it's the greatest day ever. How are you?" And then we go, "I feel terrible, and these are all the reasons why." We don't want to be that guy. And especially someone who's chronically ill, we're chronically going to feel terrible sometimes. And so we're afraid that if we chronically explain to you all the reasons we don't feel good, we're going to look chronically negative. And we're afraid that because people are going to perceive that we're negative, they're not going to want to talk to us. So we isolate ourselves in fear of isolation. To me, I feel that explaining all the reasons I don't feel good is not a great topic. It's not a fun topic of conversation. And I don't want to bring it up, and I definitely don't want you to bring it up because I don't want to ruin your day, and I feel like I will. And I personally am pretty perceptive. Most of my communication with another person is by looking at their face, looking at their body. So if I'm telling you I have a headache, I'm nauseous, I haven't slept in 32 hours, and I feel like I'm going to pass out any minute. Watching the eyes glaze over, watching the smile tighten, because all of a sudden they want to do anything to change the conversation. All of a sudden you've got some place to be where your body's facing one way and your head's facing another. It feels terrible to be talking to someone and know 100% that they don't want to talk to you anymore. So in that way, we isolate ourselves because it's easier for us not to explain how we feel and continue a normal conversation than watch someone become uncomfortable with a topic you've brought up or a topic you have engaged in. Another way that you can feel isolated is that a trend I've noticed is that before people thought of me as sick, they would ask, "How are you? How was your day?" But it seems like the longer I've been quote unquote sick, "How are you?" has been replaced with "How are you feeling?" All of a sudden everyone and their mother is asking, "How are you feeling?" And the answer is terrible. You're chronically ill. You're chronically sick. It's not going away. So a lot of times it can be frustrating because as someone who's chronically ill, I can have a terrible body day, terrible, but I can have a great day. I can do fun stuff. I can talk to fun people. I can have a good day and still feel bad. And so I think that sometimes the question, how are you feeling, can overshoot having a good day. And it's very easy for people who aren't chronically ill to feel that way, because people who are quote unquote healthy have only experienced illness or feeling physically bad when they have a cold or the flu or something that is just miserable. And so they connect sick with miserable. And for someone who's chronically ill, every day of your life you're going to have a headache, or you're going to be dizzy, or you're going to be nauseous, or you're going to be having night sweats, or you can't sleep, or you've slept too much, or there's so many things. But you have to live your life. You have to be able to be happy, because otherwise you're stuck with being sick and miserable. And it's a choice. You can be happy and be chronically ill. And that's something I really want to get across to people who don't have chronic illness, is you can have a good day and have a bad body day. So a way to make someone feel less isolated is ask, how is your day going? And maybe less, how are you feeling? Because how is your day going? If I feel like I want to tell you how I feel, I could be, yeah, my day is pretty good, but my head really hurts. I can tell you how much I want to interject my illness into the narrative. But by asking how my day is versus how I'm feeling, it gives me an opportunity to explain to you all the good stuff in my life, and not so much how much isn't going well, as it were. Chronic illness is chronic. And it seems like, especially people who you're not really talking to every day, or maybe they're not as close to you, they somehow forget the chronic portion. They'll ask, are you feeling better? Are you feeling good? Is everything all better? And you're going, no. Chronic illness is chronic. It's not going away. It's not like I have a cold and I got over it. So a lot of times when people are like, hey, how you doing? You feeling better? It can be really frustrating, and it can definitely be isolating, because you're going, you don't get it, dude. And chronic illness has peaks and valleys. You have bad days, you have good days, you have bad months, you have good months. But when people start making it sound like all of a sudden you've gotten over it and it's all fixed now, that can be really isolating. So I think that for friends and family, and people who are chronically ill, maybe you watch the way you say stuff, because that kind of stuff can really be frustrating, because you're like, how have you not been paying attention this whole time? I make Facebook announcements. It's been a big thing. I make Facebook announcements about everything I do, and it's just totally a millennial thing. But another reason why I make Facebook announcements is that I've got friends, I have family, I have friends of family who are invested in my life and in my health. They want to know how I'm doing, have my doctor's appointment go, all those things. And so by doing a Facebook announcement and being like, hey, I had my appointment and this is what they said and blah, 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 I can inform a large group, and I can make sure everyone has the same information, and especially with people with dysautonomia, which I have, hypothyroidism, which I have, CSF leaks, which I have. All three of those things can cause brain fog. So I can tell this person something, and I can tell someone completely different. And I would have thought that I told them what I told this guy, and I didn't. But they'll be frustrated because they didn't get the same information. So the way I've learned to deal with this miscommunication and hurt feelings has been to do Facebook announcements. I tell Facebook everything. But a lot of times you can't make people happy. So there's still going to be people who are frustrated because you didn't give them the skinny right then and there. And if there's someone who's got hurt feelings because you didn't give them the skinny right then and there, be like, hey, if it's that important to you, tell me. Be like, hey, just let me know. Send me a text message. And then it's a non-issue. But you have to communicate with the person who is chronically ill, because they're doing their best and there is no rule book for this, and so you really have to kind of stumble along and figure out what works for you. But if they're doing something that you don't like or is hurting your feelings, make sure you tell that person. Another reason why someone with chronic illness can feel isolated is we're not the people we used to be, physically or mentally. That experience changes people for good or bad. For me, I think overall it's been good. I'm happier in some ways than I've ever been, and in some ways I am more miserable than I've ever been. But overall, I am more self-assured, I am more confident, I am more self-driven than I have ever been. But change is change, and people have a difficult time with that. They're expecting you to be who you used to be, and when you change, a lot of times that change can be pretty jarring for people. They're expecting you to react a certain way, and when you don't, they're going, well, what the heck, who are you? And sometimes you're asking yourself the same question. But people have to adjust to the fact that you have changed, that you react differently, that your priorities are different. All of a sudden, things that were huge before are so insignificant afterwards. And the problem is, and where the disconnection is and where that isolation comes in, is that your priorities have changed, but the people around you still have the same priorities that they did before you got sick. So, say you get a tattoo and you don't tell anybody, which is exactly what I did. Before getting sick, it was a huge deal. I was like, oh my gosh, this had better be the artwork that I'm gonna keep on my body forever. And this is so permanent, and it's gonna be so painful, and oh my gosh. But after every x-ray, every CT scan, every blood test, I've gone through so many things, and I've gone through so many needle pricks, and I've gone through so many painful procedures. Some of them, the most painful thing I have ever experienced. And then all of a sudden, it was like permanent. I've already got something permanent, and it affects me way more than ink in my skin. And pain? What do you know of pain? I've already gone through so many things that were so much more painful than a tattoo could ever be. So all of a sudden, this big life decision that was a big life decision before, all of a sudden was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And that was that. There was no second guessing, there was no worrying, which is what I would have done before. But the problem is that everyone around me still had that same priority. It's painful, it's permanent, you're gonna regret it later, it's gonna look terrible when you're 90. All of those same priorities. But my priorities had changed. So when I went and I got this tattoo, everyone was a little shocked. They're like, what the heck, They were kind of miffed, some of them, that I hadn't told them beforehand and I hadn't planned it out and I hadn't been like, oh my gosh, and made a big deal out of it. But to me, it was just another day. It was like, okay, it's like I was going to get a new necklace versus getting something that was going to be permanently attached to my body, because my priorities were different. So that disjointed feeling between you and everyone else can be isolating, because people are getting hurt feelings over sort of who you've become. You're not the person they knew. And so I think that there is an adjustment period when you become chronically ill where you're adjusting to yourself, but the people around you, your friends, your family, also have to adjust to the new you. And, you know, relearning what your priorities are, and relearning what's important to you, and relearning what your new favorite hobbies are. You know, you are effectively a new person with a new outlook on life and buttloads of experience you didn't have before. So in essence, you kind of have to relearn who that chronically ill person is, and that's okay. But that learning process can be painful, it can be slow, and sometimes it can be pretty isolating because you're kind of feeling like no one gets you, because for a while they don't, and that's okay. But it's important to remember that it's a learning process, and it's just as new for them as it is for you.